Welcome to the Level Up English podcast, the best place to come to practice the English language, learn about the British accent and culture, with me, your host, Michael Lavers. Hello, English learners. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Michael, and it's another Wednesday morning for me. How is it for you? How's it going? Are you having a good week? Whether it is your week or weekend, whether you are going for a walk, you're in the gym, washing the dishes, or I know some of you even listen while you're trying to sleep, which is always very interesting for me. But wherever you are, welcome to the podcast again. I'm excited to be back with you. And I'm going to be talking today all about rejection, being rejected. So I'm going to maybe split this episode into two. I'm going to start by talking about this idea of rejection therapy, which is something I've been looking into recently that's quite interesting, and I think you might enjoy hearing about it too. And then I'm going to be talking about some common situations that we might find ourselves in life and how we can reject these situations, that we don't really want to do these things, how we can say no in a polite way, because there is a skill, definitely a skill to this in English. So I think it's going to be a really fun and useful episode, so I hope you stick around until the end. And I've got a busy week this week. I'm recording a few episodes because I'm taking a little break next week, but as usual, you guys will not notice because I'm recording in advance. I'm batching. There's a good word. If you're batching something, you can use the same word for batch cooking as well. That means you kind of do many jobs in one day, so you don't have to do it later. So I'm batching a few episodes today. I'm also recording, after this one, I'm recording the private episode for this week, which is the members only podcast. And I'm going to be talking all about how to memorize words. Well, it's not really memorize, how to use words that you memorize. So I think it's a really important skill. You know, it's not just memorizing words, but it's also using them in conversation. So I'm going to talk about that more in the private podcast this week. And this is available, by the way, to Level Up English members. You know, I mention it at the top of every show. I think it can help a lot of people, and it also helps support my work. But if you don't care, you can skip ahead 30 seconds, that's fine. But basically, this is where members can get access to the podcast, the private one. They also get access to all the transcripts for all of these episodes, so they can listen along, read along, and improve their vocabulary. And the biggest thing I'm doing these days are group classes, where we have regular classes, we have some small ones and some big ones, where we practice our conversation in groups, get to know each other, be part of a community, and it's a lot of fun. And even if you're really shy, I recommend coming, and everyone is very, very friendly. So that's been a lot of fun. And it's just £10 a month. So £10 a month, you get all of that and much more as well. If you want to become a member, the easiest way is clicking the link in the podcast show notes. So if you're listening on an app right now, look in your description of the podcast and it will have a link to become a member. Otherwise, you can just type in the website levelupenglish.school and then click on the members button at the top in the navigation bar, in the navigation menu. And if you have any questions, just let me know. I know it can be a big decision to sign up to something new, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. But okay, so I have a website open here on my computer, which is called rejectiontherapy.com. And this is something I've come across a few times in the past, but I love this idea. I think it's really fascinating. And the challenge, you know, it's also known as the rejection challenge. The challenge is to get rejected 100 days in a row, I believe, or 100 days in a year. I suppose it depends on your rules. You can make it different to suit your own life. But if you are rejected, that means people say no to you. You know, maybe you want to have a new boyfriend or girlfriend and you say, you know, do you want to be together? And they say, nah, not really. You're not my type. and then you have just been rejected, right? So the idea behind this challenge is you go out of your way to find rejection. If you go out of your way, that means you seek out rejection. You actually try to find it rather than just letting it happen to you by chance. You go out of your way to find rejection. And there's a few reasons why you might do this. So I'm going to talk about this for a second. As far as I understand, one of the reasons behind trying this challenge is to stop people pleasing. So if you are a people pleaser, that means you are someone who always wants to make everyone else happy. And honestly, these people can be quite annoying. I have these tendencies myself where I want to please everyone, make everyone happy. But sometimes it's just a bit annoying when people cannot leave you alone. They just want you to be happy. And it sounds a bit strange, I think, but I think you understand it can be annoying, right? So stop people pleasing and kind of be confident with who you are. Another thing this challenge does is helps you get more comfortable with embarrassment or rejection, right? So some of us think, if we fall over in the street, if we do something wrong and we feel embarrassed, it's the worst feeling ever. I'll give you one example. I went to the post office last week. And do you ever have that feeling when you want to say something and maybe you're in your head too much, you're thinking about it too much, and when you actually come out with the words, it doesn't match what you were planning to say? So maybe this is an argument against planning, I'm not sure. But I went up to the counter and handed in my parcel I wanted to send. And rather than saying, "Can I send this one, please?" it kind of came out like that. And it just kind of jumbled these sounds out of my mouth. And I felt really embarrassed. And then I kind of had my head down for the rest of the interaction. And I don't know what went wrong, but it was very awkward. But I think one area of optimism here is that every time this happens, we become less bothered by it. We care less and less. And seeking out these opportunities to get rejected and feel embarrassed probably speeds up the process, right? So another benefit is you don't care what people think. For me, this is a big one because I care so much what people think, and it's a big problem, I would say. But I know many of you can relate to that too. You care so much about how other people see you, and it's quite a stressful way to live. So the more you practice getting rejected, the less you care what other people think. Two other benefits: it reminds us that we are human. We are not perfect. We're not robots. We are human. And finally, a huge benefit is it opens up new opportunities, right? So I think it's on this website I was talking about, he kind of listed a lot of the benefits that had come to him because of this challenge. So I'll give you a few examples of what this guy did, and let me know what you think. Feel free to get in touch, leave a comment, let me know. His first rejection was to borrow $100 from a stranger. I saw this video on YouTube where he just went to a random guy and he said, "I'm sorry to bother you, but could I have $100, please?" And of course, the guy said no. I mean, that's a lot of money to give someone you don't know. So 99% of people will say no, right? If you get a rejection and they say no, that means you can tick off that day you've completed the challenge and you are a little bit more comfortable with getting rejected. If they say yes, you just got $100. It's a great benefit, right? So I think that's the idea here. Another example he's got here is making an announcement on an airplane. He asked the cabin attendant or the flight attendant if he could make an announcement on the plane over the speakers. And I don't know if they let him. I think they did. I think if I remember, they did actually let him do it. But little things like, it's a big thing, really. It's quite a strange thing to do. But there's one example of how he tried to get rejected. Get a free room in a hotel. Some of them are things like that where you ask for discounts, you ask for a free sample, a free room, and the worst case scenario is they say no, and it doesn't really matter. So I think it's an interesting challenge for sure. My personal view, I really like the idea, but for me, it's way too far out of my comfort zone. Thinking about the things he did is just terrifying. Like, I thought about what I could do to kind of practice this, and one idea I had was to kind of high five a stranger, like just randomly see someone on the street, like, hey, high five, and give them a high five. And I think if I'm in the right mood, I could probably give that a go. But even that is quite scary, right? I don't want to be that annoying person that high fives everyone. But again, this is probably I'm just in my head too much. Yeah. But let me know what you think. Do you think it's a good idea? I mean, has it inspired you to do anything? Or do you think it's ridiculous and it's a waste of time? I don't know. But maybe one challenge I could give you, and maybe myself as well, I haven't done this yet, is next time you order something like a coffee or a drink or whatever it is like that, ask for a discount. Ask for a discount. I think this is probably the easiest one because the cashier, the staff member, they don't really care. They don't care if you seem rude because they're going to forget about you in 2 minutes. They've got so many customers. So ask for a discount. They might say yes, which is a nice bonus, but probably they will say no. And you can really notice that feeling of, embarrassment coming up inside you. But then you realize, I survived. Nothing bad happened. And you kind of get stronger as a result. Yeah, let me know what you think. I'd really, really love to hear your ideas on this because it's something that I'm thinking about. I like the idea, but I haven't necessarily implemented in my own life. Okay, well, let's move on to the second half of the episode, which is all about English expressions for rejection. So how do you say no to things? I think it's a really important skill to learn to say no, especially for some people. Like me, for example, I get a lot of requests, almost on a daily basis. I get people asking to do a collaboration, to work with me, to sponsor my podcast or something like that. And it's physically impossible to say yes to everyone because there's not enough hours in the day, right? I guess I also have to focus on my mental health and not burn out. So I have to reject many people. And I think it's important to do that. Well, for the reasons I just mentioned. Yeah. And it is a skill. And it's also interesting when you have people from different cultures as well, because people will be very different about it. Some cultures are very direct. And to me, it can seem really rude. But as an English teacher, I've kind of learned that's not the case. Usually it's just a cultural difference. So I think it's important to learn in English. So one key in English is don't be too direct. This is from a British point of view. Maybe other English-speaking countries are different, but often rejection can be very indirect. And we often don't say what we really think. So a really common one that you will hear is, say you've just had a date with someone or you've just met someone for the first time, and then they might say, I would love to meet up again. That would be great. I would really love to see you again. But they don't offer a time or a date. And that's a big red flag. Red flag means like a warning sign, like alarms going off. So if they don't give you a meeting time, then probably that, not always, but that often means they don't want to meet up. Of course, it depends on the person. But this happens all the time when it's basically lying, isn't it? Like, yeah, I'd love to meet up, but we really plan never to meet up again. And I'll come back to this later and share my own feelings on this kind of indirect way of rejecting people. Because it kind of depends on the person, but generally we have to be quite indirect when we're rejecting in order to be polite. So a few situations that I come across in my daily life that you might as well is being asked by people on the street. So often we have charities or people who are trying to sign you up for some event, and they approach you on the street with questions. In fact, a couple of days ago, I was approached by a lady talking about something I've never heard of before, and she seemed quite friendly, so I kind of stopped to say hi, and I realized she was from some religious group. I'm not going to mention the specific one, but I know many people have accused this group of being a cult, and a bit of a strange one. So I had kind of warning sirens going off in my head. But she just wanted to hand me kind of a little business card with more information. So I kind of, okay, thank you. I didn't really stick around. But in many cases, people will try to stop you, and they want kind of 10 minutes of your time to talk about their product or their religion. And in London, it happens so much. You have to say no. You really have to be strong and say no. That's the reality of living in a city, right? So the key here, this is going to be the main key of rejecting people, is have good thing plus rejection. Don't just say no. I mean, unless they're being rude. If they're being really rude, you can say that. But if they're a nice person, you say a good thing and then rejection. For example, I'd really love to, but I can't right now. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I can't do that right now. Maybe even give an excuse, like why you can't do that. So for me, what I will often do is tell them the truth is I'm trying to get a train right now. I'm going to be late for my train, which maybe often doesn't mean much in London because the trains can be quite regular. But usually I am going to get a train. I'm often doing that. So it's a good excuse, I feel. I'm giving them a reason why I cannot stop. If you don't give a good thing, like, I would love to, but I can't, you could also just apologize. It's always good to apologize. And it doesn't matter whether you've done anything wrong. That's not what the apology is about. In English, apologizing is more just to be polite. It doesn't mean you've done something wrong. So sorry is a really useful word, and don't think it means you've been guilty in some way. So often, I had another person ask me for money the other day. Okay, people ask me for money all the time. And I just said, I'm really sorry, I don't have any change on me at the moment. So I'm really sorry, but. That is the perfect structure for a rejection. Another example, when I was in Bosnia recently, I was looking for a taxi to take me to my accommodation, and some random guy pulled up in his car and he said he was an Uber, which is the taxi company we have here in the UK and other countries. And immediately I was very suspicious of him because his car was unmarked. There was no sign that he was a taxi driver. And an even bigger red flag is that Uber does not exist in Bosnia. They don't have Uber. So I was thinking, why is this random guy trying to get me in his car? He seemed somewhat friendly, but it could well have been a disguise. He might have been acting. And I felt very cautious. I was very scared. Honestly, I had like a gut reaction that something wasn't right. So even though I was desperate to get to my accommodation, it was quite late, I was tired, I said, I really appreciate the offer, but I'm going to pass. It was a bit hard to say that because that was a bit too direct for how I feel like many English people are accustomed to rejecting people. I didn't give him a reason why, I just said I'm going to pass, which is a good expression. I appreciate the offer, good thing, but I'm going to pass. So there's another good one. Another example is I get an offer to collaborate on Instagram. I get many people asking to do Instagram lives or some kind of collaboration project. And I really appreciate it. It does mean a lot to me that people want to work with me. But as I said before, I just don't have the time to work with everyone. I have to, put my mental health first. And that's kind of what I try to say to these people too, that It's not about you, it's about me. So what I'll often say is, that's really kind of you, but that's really kind of you to ask, but I'm afraid I don't have the energy to do that right now. I'm afraid I can't. Yeah, and this is another amazing expression that some people get confused about. I am afraid. Sometimes I say this to people and they say, why are you afraid? Why are you scared? And I have to explain, no, I'm not scared. I'm not afraid. I'm not frightened. But this is just a common expression that means unfortunately. I'm afraid I can't means unfortunately I can't. And it's very polite, a good expression to use. So I'm afraid I don't have the time at the moment. I'm really sorry. I've got to go. Maybe you're in a situation where your boss is asking you to work overtime. You want to get home, see your family, relax at home, but your boss is like, can you work a couple more hours tonight? And that's a really awkward situation. I've been there before, and you want to feel like a team player. You don't want to let your boss down. But on the other hand, you don't want to work, right? Who would? Who would? Come on. So you could say another phrase, actually, I think I'm going to pass on that if you don't mind. Yeah, this isn't the most polite way, but is a good expression. Actually, I think I'm going to pass on that if you don't mind. Yeah, if you don't mind, I think I'll pass on that tonight. Pass means to say no, reject. A really common one as well, which is a favorite for people here, is the delaying the problem until later. We said, I'll have a think about it and get back to you. This is something that I try to avoid doing personally because I want to try to be direct if I can. I don't want to lead people on and keep them waiting. But it's very common where you say, "Oh, let's meet up again. Let's do something else." I'll have a think about it and get back to you. I need to prepare my thoughts on this. I need to think about it. And some people might hear that and think, oh, okay, so he's going to contact me later. But really, it means I'm never going to contact you again. But yeah, let me know, guys. I'll leave it there for now. We've got some good expressions here, which I will write up in the show notes as well. But let me know in the comments on the show notes page, have you been rejected before? Have you had any really hurtful rejections, maybe from a potential boyfriend or girlfriend, or you've had to reject someone else, like your boss asking you to work longer? Let me know, how did you do it? How did you feel afterwards as well? And I'd love to hear more if you would accept that rejection challenge as well. But yeah, just to conclude here, that people generally like to beat around the bush. And this is a great expression that means to not say directly what you want to say, to beat around the bush. This is really common. And personally, I don't really like this way of rejecting people. I try to explain exactly what I don't want to do in a polite way. And it's something I'm practicing. It's not easy. Maybe it's my culture, my background, my upbringing. It's not natural for me. Honestly, I think people respect you more if you just be honest with them. So if people ask me to work with them, I might just say, I appreciate the offer, but I just don't have the energy to do that right now. I probably could fit it in my schedule if I really wanted to, but I don't have the mental capacity to do that. And it might seem a little bit ruder than just saying, I'll think about it and get back to you. But I think people appreciate that honesty. I hope they do anyway. But yeah. I'll leave it here, but I've got a very, very nice message today from a listener, so we'll listen to that. And as always, we'll end with a quote in just a second as well. So let's see what this listener had to say.
Hello, Michael. My name is Zubair Mir, and I'm from Kashmir, India. Well, I don't exactly remember when I started listening to a podcaster, but to be very honest, it is one of the best podcasters I have ever listened to. And let me tell you that I have improved my vocabulary, my pronunciation, my grammar with the help of your podcaster. So thank you so much for your efforts. It will surely be remembered. I would like to recommend your podcast to each and everyone who is interested in learning English for free. And with the help of your podcasters, I have decided to become a polyglot. And currently, I am learning English and French at the same time. This is such a great podcaster. So, thank you so much for being there, and thank you so much for your help. You are such a great teacher. May God bless you.
Thank you so much, Zubair. That was a really kind message. I really appreciate it. I hope I got your name right. It was a little bit hard to catch your name in the audio. But I'm really glad that the podcast is helping with your vocabulary and your grammar. And thank you for saying it's the best podcast too. And I really appreciate it if you do recommend my podcast to other people. That really means a lot to me. And it's one of the best things people can do is just tell your friends about the podcast and get other people listening. And that is one of the nicest ways you can help make my day and help the podcast grow as well. So thank you so much for listening and taking the time to leave your kind message. Nice to hear from you. And now let's get to a couple quick podcast reviews. I want to say a quick thank you to someone called Liubo, who said, "Hello, soon you'll be on the top list of every phone. Well done, your spirit is really strong. I feel like no one can stop you, and thank you for your help. For people like me with second language. The podcast is really helpful. Regards, DK." Thank you so much, DK. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. I've got another one here from Rakan M from Saudi Arabia, who just says, "Wonderful. Simple review, but always appreciated." And one more here from Foyam from the UAE, who says, "Hi, I have started your podcast accidentally and couldn't stop listening to you. You did a great job here, and what I love the most is your mindset." You're too kind. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I wonder how you listened accidentally. That sounds very interesting, but I'm glad that fate brought you to my podcast anyway, and I hope you enjoy the future episodes I make too. But yeah, thank you again, everyone, for the podcast reviews on Apple Podcasts. It means a lot to me. And let's end today with a quote from my Instagram page, English with Michael. I post a quote every Saturday with a picture from my life recently. This picture is a cat that I found living in the basement, the abandoned basement of a building, guarding his house from me. And anyway, the quote is, "Before anything great is really achieved, your comfort zone must be disturbed," by Ray Lewis. So before anything great is achieved, your comfort zone must be disturbed. Think about that one, but I love this quote, and it's very appropriate for the rejection topic today. But yes, thank you for listening today. Hope you enjoyed it and hope you have a fantastic week. See you next time. Goodbye. You have been listening to the Level Up English podcast. If you would like to leave a question to be answered on a future episode, then please go to levelupenglish.school/podcast. That's levelupenglish.school/podcast. And I'll answer your question on a future episode. Thanks for listening.